Let's date forever. Here's your weekly dose of relationship fuel with Sammi and Nathan Jaeger. Hello and welcome to Date Forever. In this week's episode, we're chatting about the next fuel tank in our Fueled Up Life model, which is career and business. So if you want a full rundown on our fuel tanks, go and check out one of our previous episodes, which is titled How We Are Keeping Our Fuel Tanks Full for a Better Relationship. Because in that episode, we give you a full rundown of the 8 fuel tanks and a brief overview of them. But before we dive into that, Sammi, what's been fueling you up this week?
I had a bit of a clunky start to the working year last week.
That was your first week back, yeah?
Yeah, it was, which is funny that we're talking about career and business today. So I think the thing that fueled me up the most was kind of doing like a hard reset over the weekend. I was very intentional about setting myself up for success for week 2. So I think being able to like have some self-awareness about what worked and what didn't, what I needed to change, what are some habits that I really want to lean into improving or changing. So I don't know if there's like one specific thing, but the other thing that really, really fueled me up was that I took my inflatable and my husband, my inflatable donut down to the beach and soaked in and floated around, and we chatted for ages over the weekend in the beautiful Sydney summer sun. So I think that the combination of the two really fueled me up. What about you, Nath?
Mine was in line with that second one. So yeah, what really fueled me up was going for a snorkel. So going snorkeling is one of those things that I always love doing on holidays. So whenever we go on an overseas trip, snorkeling is like one of the things that I really love doing.
Yeah, snorkeling for you, horse riding for me.
Yeah, that's it. And for some reason, it's always just remained a holiday activity and not something that I've actually done in my everyday life. And the stupid thing is that for the last year, we've lived within like 15 minutes of probably one of the best snorkeling beaches in Sydney or in and around Sydney. So there's no reason why I couldn't do it. I've got the gear as well. So, finally got out for a snorkel on the weekend and saw lots of stingrays and a few other fish and things like that. And so it was, just really beautiful to know that we've got something so nice within such close distance. And so I think it'll definitely be something that's a bit more on my radar now.
A little jump start to inject it back into your life.
Yeah, definitely. Before we dive deep into this career and business tank, I just want to give you a quick little rundown of the 8 tanks and what they are. So tank number 1 is self. So the second tank is your romantic relationship. Tank number 3 is relationships and networks. That's everyone outside of your romantic relationship. Tank number 4 is humming household. Tank number 5, the one that we're looking at today, is career and business. Tank number 6 is wealth and lifestyle. Tank number 7 is the world. And then the final tank number 8 is the future.
So, Nath, tank number 5 in our little mini series of a Fueled Up Life, talking about career and business. What is this tank made up of?
So I think it's pretty self-explanatory. It's about our working careers and our businesses and how those careers and businesses contribute to our overall lifestyle.
Yeah, it's kind of talking about what are the activities that we do that bring in revenue, that bring in the dollars, what brings in the money into our life.
Yeah. So it's not just about the financial contribution though, but it's looking at where we want our careers to grow and ensuring that we've got careers that really do fuel us up as well.
Yeah, I think it's about the meaning and the purpose and the alignment that either your career or business can bring to you. So I think that there's a few elements that for me, when I think about the times where this tank has been really full in my life and other times when it's been really empty, there's been a couple of things that can make or break how full that tank is. Yeah, and I think one is having a really clear understanding of how your career and my career is contributing to our overall lifestyle. And like Nath just said, not just in a financial element, but like when Nath and I very first moved to Sydney, I took a pay cut, like quite a substantial one, because I was doing a pivot in my career. And although we took hit on the salary side of things, the job that I was in came with so many perks.
Yeah.
And I was able to get invited to a lot of events and experiences, and we got access to some things that we wouldn't have otherwise got, which drastically impacted our overall lifestyle at the time, because it was a pretty sweet gig.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was one of those roles that did really fuel you up too. Like in your career up to that point, you had sort of found yourself in a role that you enjoyed, but wasn't really something that you were overly passionate about. And so this pivot that you had done was really to realign to where you wanted to be from a career perspective, and the role definitely delivered on that.
Yeah, and I think that I did go from like a real empty career and business tank where I'd been working in an industry that was never in my intention. I kind of ended up there without strategic thought or planning in my career, and then the opportunity came to reassess that and go, what do I really want out of my career in this season of my life? And then I flipped to a period of time where my career and business tank was really full. But I think knowing how our individual careers are contributing to our overall lifestyle, not just financial, but the time and the energy and the resources and things. Because I think most careers, most jobs, most businesses have upsides, downsides, pros, cons, that kind of thing. So I think it's about really understanding the role that each of your respective careers or businesses is playing in that.
So this is not just looking at our careers individually, but also how we're collectively working as a couple in that career and business space too. So as Sammi kind of mentioned, when we first moved to Sydney, her role financially, like she took a pay cut to do that. And so what we kind of did was look overall at us as a couple. So I was kind of leading financially in that point of our life, and Sammi was there really building her career in this new industry and working towards solidifying herself in that space. So some previous guests of ours that we interviewed, Bushy and Sonia Martin, gave us this really great framework of how in a couple you can use this to really boost your lifestyle. So what they called this was the Money Madison. So what this is a strategy that's kind of like the Madison bike race in the velodrome, if you know about that. So it's a tag team race essentially where one person does a few laps while the other person is regaining some energy. And then a certain distance through the race, they'll swap over and the other person will take the lead. So the way that Bushy and Sonia described this was that one person is the worker and one person is the wealth builder. So at that stage of our life when we moved to Sydney, I was acting as the worker, so I was the solid, stable base, and Sammi was the wealth builder as she was pivoting careers and really establishing herself in that arena.
So I think another really big part of having a full career and business tank is doing work that aligns with your values and working in an environment that like really suits them. And I'm sure we've probably all had crappy jobs, crappy bosses or leaders or managers who make questionable decisions that really like rub up against your values. And even if you might not have used that language, maybe you just might have thought, oh, this place is just not for me. These are not my people. And I think it's really important to kind of understand what it is that you value in a career. Like, is it just like you really want to be financially focused, or is it more about contribution and your career having a real purpose or level of impact that you're trying to create? And I think this is really about understanding like that work to live or live to work kind of thing and what the balance is for you.
So something else that plays into this area too is around flexibility and some of the other perks that might come along with your job too. So it is really understanding what you value in your role. Like, do you value that flexibility to be able to work whenever you want? Do you value the contribution that your role creates? Or what is it about your career that really does fuel you up?
Yeah, and I think the like environment that's aligned to you part. Like I started working from home full time, I think in about 2016, 2017. So a couple years pre-pandemic. So I was full time from home, had my home office, and that's more than 5 years later. And I cannot imagine needing to get up and go to an office every day. I place so much value on that flexibility that I would not compromise that for something else like more money, because that is more aligned with my values, and having that flexibility really does support mine and Nate's lifestyle.
So the next aspect to having a full career and business tank is really knowing what our career trajectory looks like and knowing what the next steps are and having a bit of a plan in place to get there. So one of the things that Sammi and I do is in our annual planning session, we map out goals specifically for our careers and our business. So this is really looking at what is the trajectory of your career, where do you want to move in the next 12 or 18 or 24 months, and what are the active steps that we can be doing to get there.
Yeah, I kind of alluded to this already earlier in the episode about like that I found myself in an industry that I didn't really want to be in, especially not long term. And I don't think that I really ever had a good understanding of like forecasting my career or my career next steps, or what the skills or opportunities might be that I need to seek out in order to get that next step or that next opportunity. And it was probably a few years into getting myself settled in an industry that I realized that I didn't really know how to get myself to the next level. I felt like I'd kind of hit a bit of a ceiling in terms of my industry and my professional growth, and I really didn't know what else I could be doing. So I saw a coach, and it was probably one of the first times that I realized that there was energy and effort that went into perfecting my technical skills in my industry and being good at my job, and then the working on my career part in terms of stretching myself and figuring out what skills I might need for future roles, not just the role that I'm doing now. So I think ever since working with that coach, I've had a much stronger focus on, okay, this is what I'm doing now and how does that contribute to what I might like to do in the future, and what are some of the stepping stones and the little baby steps that I can be taking now for where I want to be in, 5 years, 10 years. It really comes back to like that idea that opportunities aren't given to you, they're created by you.
Yeah, and I know there's definitely been times in my career where I've been a little bit too stagnant and a little bit too comfortable in a role, and it's not really pushing me, and I don't really have a plan to move. And so it's something that can happen very easily. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. You may love your role and really be fueled up by what you're currently doing, but it is worth looking ahead and thinking, well, where do I actually want to be in 5 years, and working out some of that plan to get there.
And really, we do spend so much time in our careers, in our businesses, working.
Yeah, we do.
That I feel like it's really worthwhile to consider what it is that you want out of a role, and what are some of those things that you value. Because like we sort of said, like, are you a work to live kind of person, and you just kind of want to go to work, do the thing that you do well, contribute to a company that feels meaningful, but not necessarily like grow and stretch and climb a ladder and put in the extra hustle. And really what nourishes and fuels you up is outside of your professional life. And I feel like that's totally okay. And I feel like we're not very honest about that. I feel like sometimes people are made to feel like that's a shameful thing. We should all just want to be striving all of the time for the next bigger and better thing. But I think understanding like what your career steps might look to be able to even afford you that, like what kind of career step or job or role might allow you to just leave work at the end of the day and not think about it again.
Yeah. So on the topic of hustle, the next aspect to having a fueled up career and business tank is looking at that work-life balance that we were chatting about and making sure that work and life are in harmony with each other. This harmony doesn't necessarily need to be a balance of like you clock off after your 7.6 hours and you're done and dusted. This might be that you are working through a real career phase where you do need to put in the extra effort, but it's just making sure that you are conscious about the time that you are spending at work and putting some clear boundaries in around your career.
I have not done this well. I still don't really do this well. I feel like this is something that I struggle with. I think one part because I don't have one job. I have a job, I freelance, I have another business, and then obviously we're here on this fabulous podcast.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of different wheelhouses, and sometimes I find it really challenging to maintain personal boundaries around my own personal time and my intentions about how much I want to work and when I want to work. Other times I can be quite firm about protecting myself and my time, but historically I have really struggled at this, and to the point where I really did feel like I self-sacrificed a lot in some previous roles, and that came, this career and business tank really cost me fuel in some of my other tanks, like my relationship with myself, like my relationship with Nathan. I think I've learned from that experience, and I do feel like I'm much, much better at putting my relationship with myself of higher standard and higher value. And also my marriage, I think there's things that I'm far more likely to protect now than perhaps previously. And it's funny because at that time that I'm kind of referring to, I was doing all of the things that I thought I needed to do to keep that career and business tank full. But I really didn't realize that by doing that, I was really robbing my other tanks.
The word harmony here is really key, and making sure that you're not doing one thing at the expense of the other, or that you know the boundary that this is only for a short time, or I'm doing this for this reason to achieve this thing, and then we'll look at recalibrating after that.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit like what we were talking about before with like the worker and the wealth builder. Like that might be that you're in the middle of like returning to study, or you're working on a really big project that's demanding a lot of you, and you're really invested in it, and you want to see it through. But I think it's about communicating expectations between us, right?
Yeah,
like when is work going to be the priority? When are you yourself going to be a priority? When's our marriage going to be the priority? For everything that you're saying yes to at work, what are you saying no to in the other areas of your life? Because I think when those things fall out of balance, that is when it starts to feel like you're running on empty.
And one of the final things for having a fueled up career and business tank is making sure that we are financially rewarded in alignment with our current career role.
Being underpaid feels shitty.
Yeah, it does.
Is that what you're trying to say? I feel like that's where you were going to go.
It is.
I'm not sure if anyone's had this experience where they found out that they're, not being paid in line with maybe an award or with the market or with one of their colleagues or a peer or something like that, or between businesses in a similar sort of size, something like that. It doesn't feel very nice. And I often feel like it's not really about the money. It's far more about the value exchange and how valued you kind of feel. So I do feel like money's not the only reason. I feel like there's so many other opportunities for employers and business owners to reward their employees, and that that could be with things like additional time off and flexi time and additional training and upskilling opportunities and compressed working weeks and all of those other wonderful things, like lots of other benefits and like kickbacks and rewards and recognitions and employee incentive programs and all of those other things that can make a workplace incredible if the salary is lacking. But I think it just feels shitty if you know that you aren't being financially rewarded in alignment with your contribution. I've gone into bat for myself for pay rises a couple of times in my career. And again, I'm going to advocate for getting a coach, but learning how to package my value and present what it is that I'm offering has been a really big part of me feeling that sense that I am in alignment. What about you, Nath?
Yeah, I've gone into bat a couple of times as well. As opposed to when I've been solid in a role, it's normally been when I've been striving for a new role and making sure that I'm being substantially rewarded for that. So, yeah, I have done that a couple of times. And those conversations aren't necessarily easy, but it does make being in that role so much easier and just prevents that resentment as well around maybe taking on a role with extra responsibility when you know that you're not being paid correctly for it.
And I think like having started a couple of businesses, that's hard too, because early days, like you might not be paying yourself at all. Or if you are, maybe like bare minimum. So sometimes it can, like, in my experience, it's been hard to feel like, where's the reward? Where's the kickback for all this work that I'm doing? I think like the holistic big picture, knowing that this is for future Sammi, future Nathan, as much as it is for current day Sammi and Nathan.
Yeah. So I think a lot of what we've chatted about today has been more so focused on the career side of things, like an employee-employer kind of relationship. But all of this does apply if you are running your own business as well. So making sure that you have a clear understanding of how your business is contributing to your overall lifestyle, making sure your business is in alignment with your values, and making sure you know the next steps for your businesses.
And then it's ultimately filling your tank, not emptying it.
That's it.
So I hope this episode has been helpful to help you reflect where your career and business tank is at the moment. Is it empty? Is it full? Is it somewhere in the middle? Maybe stop and prop and reflect on some of these questions and do a little self-audit of what you need to change, if anything.
So to say thank you for listening today and keeping in theme with career and business, we have contributed to the Sustainable Development Goal number 8, decent work and economic growth, by providing access to 1 week of vocational training to women in the Philippines. This has been made possible via our partnership with Buy One, Give One. So thank you so much for listening. Thanks heaps for joining us. If you love what we're doing here and want more, subscribe to the Date Forever podcast to make sure you never miss an ep. Come and hang out with us and other awesome couples who are fueling up their relationships in the Thriving Couples Collective Facebook group, or check us out at fuelcollective.com.au. Until next time, keep on dating, because better relationships equal a better world.